I think the Halloween ABBA soundtrack.
Oh, I love that episode when they all get food poisoning from the army, the army food.
Yeah, and it's like a zombie takeover
it's really
thing.
good.
I love that because in between the ABBA songs on the same playlist are the voice notes for the dean.
This is so good.
So they just occasionally like a voice note just plays over the intercom.
Such a great character.
I do think the dean is still
Jim Rash is awesome.
He makes me laugh still.
I mean, they make him like like front and center, like in the 5th and 6th seasons. Like, you get so much more of him later in this because he's such a fan favorite.
I hope this doesn't shape me in some way.
Yeah, I love that. I love that line.
I love him.
He's looking at like furries dressed as like Dalmatians or something like that. I don't know. Hey, Victoria.
Oh, hey, Chelsea. What's up?
You know what I could use right now?
What could you use?
A Breath of Fresh movie.
Oh, get out. I want one of those.
Awesome.
Yay.
That's a movie I like to see.
Hi.
Hello.
You're listening to A Breath of Fresh Movie. This is a weekly podcast where me, Victoria Harley,
Me, Chelsea Pope.
we watch a movie neither one of us has ever seen before.
And we may talk.
We watch it and we talk about it.
We watch it and we talk about it, and we may not talk about everything,
But
we'll talk about anything.
Spoilers ahoy.
Spoilers ahoy.
Today's film is the 2023 horror mystery thriller Knock at the Cabin, directed by M. Night Shyamalan. While vacationing at a remote cabin in the woods, a young girl and her parents are taken hostage by armed strangers who demand they make an unthinkable choice.
Yeah, I mean, go in as raw as you can. Don't listen. Like, if you want to watch this movie fresh, like, don't listen to the rest of this episode until you've watched it.
I mean, you know M. Night Shyamalan. Like, you don't...
Go and watch it and form your own opinion before we go right away. Just, like, the less you know, the better.
Yeah.
The colder you go in, the better.
But if you've seen it, stick around.
Yeah. I mean, we got thoughts.
Yeah.
As always, incredibly polarizing.
Yeah. I'm just going to read out the cast here. We have Ben Aldridge, Jonathan Groff, Dave Bautista, Rupert Grint, Abby Quinn, Nikki Amuka Bird, and Kristen Cooey. I hope I said that last one right. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. People were really, like, in the theater I was in, people applauded when Rupert Grint's name came on the screen.
Did you have, like, a sizable crowd in your audience?
It wasn't huge, but it was definitely people who were game and...
Interesting.
And there, and... It was like it wasn't the latest showing. It was like 8:45.
Do you usually go to the Grove, right? When you go
I
to
do, just because that's the one that shows a lot of the mainstream shit. But that's if we're seeing a new thing. If otherwise, I'll go to Brain Dead or the New Bev or.
I'm just thinking, like, in terms of...
I gotta maintain my...
I respect it. No,
I'm cool. I'm cool, guys. I'm a cool girl.
You're a cool girl, okay? No, because I just am thinking, like, because I went to the Chinese theater in Hollywood.
Right.
I was one of...
That place is
I
always...
think 5 people in the entire audience.
Everything I've seen there has been a ghost town.
But it's well maintained is the weird thing.
Beautiful.
I was so, like,
it's
the
so
bathroom was really nice. It was really...
I feel like I'm
really
on,
nice.
like, a nice level of the Death Star. Like, when I'm
yeah, no, you know what? I respect that.
I feel like that's
I like
the
that.
vibe.
Yeah, it really does feel that way.
Yeah,
I get, not that I expected everybody to be like knocking down the doors at this point, like
knock.
knock knock.
Be knocking at the theater.
I think it was a Tuesday when I went. It was but it was around like 7:30. I think was the show time.
I went on a Wednesday night. But this just came out. You know, we're on the pulse here.
Yeah. We're relevant.
We're in this.
Yeah, dude.
God, you know, it's so funny. I remember learning that word zeitgeist literally in middle school. I had like a history teacher share this word with us.
They were pushing you to learn.
And yeah, they really were. And it's just funny how now it's so overused. You know, zeitgeist.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's like, ugh.
Yeah.
Like you just.
There's so many words like that, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Discourse.
Yeah.
I use that one all the time.
Everything's ruined. It's fine. I've said it. If you've said it this week, that's fine. I'm not judging you.
Well, we're also about to ruin this movie for anybody who keeps listening. So,
that's true.
Like, careful.
So we've passed checkpoint, Chelsea.
Yeah.
Get out. First impressions. Walking out of the theater, what were you? You went alone, right?
I went alone. There's a lot to appreciate. I didn't like it, but I appreciate it is the thing. Like I'm having still now several days later, like the internal struggle of like I wouldn't do this for any movie, but is it because I'm just projected, like I want M. Night Shyamalan to succeed so badly, or is it just like, oh, we're just starved for original stories, whatever? But like what I perceive to be the intended message of the story and the way it was given and the changes that were made from the original source material, which I also don't know if I would even necessarily say I would enjoy that. I haven't read the book, but I just, as far as what the summary of that story and the change, I don't know if I like either. I appreciate the intended, I think, like moral or message or quandary that both the author of the original novel and M. Night Shyamalan are trying to say, which are actually rather different.
Yeah.
But I don't know if in either case I like the way it was. I don't know if I like the execution. I'm going to go ahead and say I don't.
Yeah.
But also, I don't regret giving it my money.
No.
You know.
Yeah.
I'm glad I went and saw it in a theater.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like what you're saying about appreciating. I think that's like the level of respect that comes from just struggling in this business ourselves,
Sure.
I think, and understanding how hard it is, and
Or just like the respect for like someone just trying to.
And Shyamalan's been a bit of people's whipping boy. His name is not that difficult, yet there's common. Well, it's like Shyamalama Ding Dong. Like,
Oh,
sure, like, you know, like
Yeah.
it's, and it's just, but it's so ridiculous when we've got people like Quentin Tarantino walking
Oh,
around.
people joke with his name too. I will say Tarantino.
Yeah.
You know,
You're right, but I think
people get silly.
But forget the name.
But yeah,
But-
Shyamalan, he definitely has
name-
been shamed,
Name
publicly
as-
shamed.
Well,
and-
name aside, I think he's been hammered on a lot.
Yeah.
For somebody who is a successful filmmaker.
It's just when you come out as strong as you did with Sixth Sense, which I think myself and certainly others would probably say still probably his best work, like enjoyment and like personal enjoyment and qualitatively speaking, is probably like the most.
It's fabulous.
It's a fairly popular consensus, but also just, it's an unfair standard to have to keep meeting like that. Keep, like, you know, quote unquote, like peak too early or whatever. But like,
Well, Jordan Peele was under a similar, Get Out. He spent like 6 years writing Get Out. So I mean, it's perfection.
And now those people are comparing. Everything has to be against that with Us. And
yeah. Now,
and
Nope, I thought was fantastic.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm not worried about him.
No.
But I think the notion of expectations. If you took the titles away, imagine some sort of desert island situation where you just can walk into a theater, you don't know what you're going to see.
Yeah.
You just get a title and then you watch this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if people would have different feelings or express themselves differently about it.
I think that's a great question because I think there's a lot of shared. I think like the discourse is like swung into the approval of M. Night from just like a little film Twitter bubble or whatever. Just the things I see on Letterboxd. I think like a lot of people are just, oh, thank God it's not another Marvel movie. Like, oh, it's not another sequel or tired IP or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, oh, at least it's something original, even if it's, even if it doesn't stick the landing,
No.
people are just like, oh, it's still refreshing.
And, to that point, this is a Universal film, which I don't know if you
Yeah.
noticed, but they put the old school Universal logo at the
I
very
didn't
beginning.
notice that, but that's a good.
Well, I'm kind of we know people who have listened to us before know I have a
call out.
weird obsession about Universal, but I also really love Universal's that open, the thing that pops up on the screen, the studio insignia. It has changed so many times over the years, and
Yeah.
some of the older ones are really fantastic.
Yeah.
and some of the newer ones are just kind of boring. So I was really like tickled.
It
that
creates a mood, right?
Yeah, he was like, oh, no. And I guess he also used particular lenses. I mean, he said 90s lenses. I don't know what that means from a filmmaking standpoint.
Well, I would just say it does have a certain flavor and texture in this film that I really like that about all of his movies. Actually,
Yeah,
I like that.
precisely.
There's a style.
He's making choices.
Yeah.
And even if you're like, I'm not sure why, or I'm not sure that was effective for me, they were choices.
There's
And
everything feels really intentional, whether you
It's
like
all
it or
in-
not.
it's
from
all
M. Night Shyamalan.
intentional.
And again,
Yeah.
that's where I'm still feeling that tornness of like, I don't know if I liked this, but I like what was done. I like
it wasn't thoughtless.
I like that.
It wasn't
Yeah.
thoughtless. It was
intentional.
somebody
It
worked.
was-
They worked really hard, and I think some people will really like this movie.
No, so some people definitely have.
Some people
Oh no,
really
it's
do.
this is a very, like I said, very polarizing, but it's got
Yeah.
its fans for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say
Yeah.
though, I feel like ultimately, do you enjoy herring? Because this movie is nothing but fucking red herrings.
Yeah.
There were so many things that never got resolved. And
Yeah.
again, I understand
Yeah.
we're trying to, the audience is to have the experience of those in the cabin. What do we believe? What do we value? What's more important to us? Like our
Yes.
family, the world, all these things. But then also,
But then if you're going to take the painstaking effort to put certain to validate certain things, like because in the book, for instance, there's no TV validating any of that. You don't know.
Interesting.
And if I'm not mistaken, maybe I am.
Well,
I didn't read the book. I just from my research, it sounds like the book is more intentionally opaque about the validity
okay,
of what is happening,
it's more ambiguous.
as opposed to the film, where every time somebody, it's just almost takes you out of it because there's a campy element to it. And I think, and he's very, M. Night Shyamalan, he's got an interesting little sense of humor, the way that the TV conveniently has the news right away, telling you an update about what's happening. And then his cameo, and this is the home shopping guy. Just
Fantastic.
He's got a winky quality that, like,
that's the thing. Like,
I don't know if it serves, but
I actually, I got whiplash from this movie because I
Yeah.
thought all the scenes that weren't in the horror, I thought were really good.
yeah.
I thought they were really funny and human, like really sweet.
I think he let his actors all shine too. I thought it was well cast,
Yeah.
and everybody. I didn't feel
It's just that
I felt like they all had an opportunity to
yeah,
really
no.
show range.
And I mean, it's a great vehicle for any actor because it's all of us in a room together. This is like theater at this point.
Yeah.
But
It felt like like a play. 'Cause
Yeah.
most of it's very stationary. There.
yeah. Maybe M. Night Shyamalan should make a comedy, Like, I mean, he's really
Maybe.
funny. I read some interviews with him where he's very aware of expectation
Yeah.
and people's expectations of him. And he kind of likened it. I wanted, when I was a younger filmmaker, I wanted to believe that I can do this type of movie. And the first two films he made are very different. They're not supernatural in any way. But, if you pick up an Agatha Christie novel, you have certain expectations.
Yeah.
But it bums me out because I feel like maybe he's
Is he restraining himself too much then?
that's what
Like
I'm
he's
wondering.
he's putting too many
I feel-
expectations on himself.
I mean,
that
I
way.
kind of feel like you feel like we
Well, you
expect
gotta have a twist. You gotta-
right.
yeah.
And I'm like, I feel like the expectation is what's killing people's interest in you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not trying to essentialize the man's career, but to me, the last thing I saw in the theater, and I haven't seen anything since until this movie, was The Village. Again, it was like, what's the twist going to be? What's the twist going to be?
I mean,
What-
he
and
leaned
then-
into that, and I think he felt he had to. And then also, once people were starting to expect those things, then they're like hunting. Then there's that whole pressure of.
It's upsetting.
It kind of reminds me of like what people were talking about with like the ending of Game of Thrones and how all that fallout handled, and then I'm thinking of like the interview bite of
Yeah.
George R. R. Martin talking about like, well, you write this whole story and then you set it up so the butler did it, but then suddenly people guess, oh, the butler. No, you can't panic and go, oh, now the maid did, or this, because it fucks everything else out,
Yeah.
So there's that whole the pressure of subversion.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's something that's undercutting.
Yeah, I
much
don't know.
that-
But
yeah.
that idea of expectation just seems to be hovering around the whole discussion of this thing. And in other remarks, I mean, Shyamalan has talked about how one of the things he loves to do is once he's done with a film, there's a release date. But he's like, but what I really like to do is just screen it, like screen it anywhere and for anyone, because he said, I think when you get something in front of people before, I think he used the phrase, the system,
Yeah.
tells you something about it.
Yeah.
It's a conversation between the director and the film goer.
He does seem like I like that aspect too. I think others may as well feel this way. There's something, it's very sort of like Democrat, or it's like a little bit anti-elitist.
Yeah.
And people can get very caught up in the smell of their own farts in this
Oh, yeah.
industry. And for all of his like pressure to be the specific type of auteur, I think
And,
there is something about him wanting to be accessible. Or
Yeah. His films, the whole total sum of their earnings, I mean, we're talking about billions of dollars.
Yeah.
He is a successful filmmaker.
People have curiosity, even if they're not, even if there's apprehension about his work. You
Yeah,
know?
and I think
I don't know.
I'm not going to use the word entitled, but I think he puts his money into his own things at times. Like, he made a lot of movies that, and we'll go through the filmography, but he had like a kind of a, even though we were saying like that's the best one, but he still
Yeah.
did really well. There were a lot of films that happened. And then he started making ones that did more increasingly poorly with critics and at the box office, and started getting more panned and more ridiculous until he was at this low point where Hollywood was kind of just like, yeah, we don't want to touch anything you're doing. So he went and filmed The Visit secretly on his own dime.
I remember the reception on that was like, oh, what do you know? Like, I feel like people were like, yeah, this is the start of M. Night Shyamalan's refreshing.
Yes.
It's refreshing
and
what
that
he's
was,
bringing.
I haven't seen it, but it was described as a horror comedy. So my whole, like, maybe he should have comedy, there's something, he has kind of.
No,
so,
definitely.
To his credit, he has attempted that. But that was a movie that got picked up, the rights got picked up by Universal. And then it ended up being like the 5th highest grossing film that year.
There you go.
It was a big success. And he kind of came back, and Universal really gave him like a second life, and after The Visit, I mean, we'll get into it, but the point is, like, he's been up, he's been down, but he's never not been working, and he's never not cared, and actors describe working with him as being like a really wonderful experience. I don't have a problem with this at all. If I don't want to see it, I don't have to see it, but he can keep making movies. I don't care. But anyway, back to this movie.
Did we even get the log line yet? I'm just
I
realized
did,
because
yeah.
okay,
No,
cool.
we got
I was
it
like,
out.
we got so into it for a second.
Yeah, I
was
know.
like, no, it's not that I'm having a problem with that,
one of the first impressions I felt like I had walking out was, and I'm not saying this is what inspired it, but it felt just like, boy, there have been a lot of tragedies lately. Sort of feels like the apocalypse is happening now, but no one would believe it. Because so much crazy shit is. And I'm like, it just felt like one long thought experiment about that.
And I wonder too if just like we've been so exposed to so much media and so much shit's happened that everything that's trying to tackle this kind of stuff just feels so, it's not just this movie, but so much other media that's trying to engage with like so many people are like, I don't want to watch a movie with fucking COVID, and I don't want people like address this,
I don't want to see a
things,
mask.
just like people, they want something that's more whether it's escapism or they want something that just feels a little less like it has, like we don't have to rehash the obvious shit. I guess it gets tired.
And it's not as if this was totally about climate disaster, but
certainly. Well, it did that, and it had a pandemic involved. It had all the plagues are all these relevant things.
Yeah, and the whole codedness of it. Again, it on another level, it felt like somebody reading a story from the Bible and being like, "Well, that's kind of a fun myth. Let's noodle on that."
What if Moses, but now?
Yeah, right. And I felt frustrated because I didn't understand why the people holding them hostage had to die.
Yeah, I
did not understand that. I didn't understand.
Yeah.
I was so upset for the girl.
Yeah.
She's not going to be okay. You have this vision of her becoming a therapist. Bitch, she's going to be in therapy for the rest of her life.
No, but ironically, though, she probably could become a therapist, so she'd diagnose herself. But also, sure.
Like, oh my God.
I
was so upset for what was damaging her. Because I'm like, that girl's never going to be okay.
One of the things I found was interesting with the book, which is where I was feeling partway through the movie, where I'm like, this world isn't worth fucking saving if this is the cost. Like, what kind of fucking God is this? Yeah. And I actually think, ironically, speaking of movies with cabins, I think Cabin in the Woods does a better job addressing the conundrum that the book actually is more direct with its messaging of, because that the book ending, and also I think Cabin in the Woods, the relative endings are the protagonists who are supposed to make this choice about sacrifice, like they have to make a sacrifice to save the world, and they're like, in both cases, I'm not we're gonna face what comes, and like we're not gonna fuck that, I think Cabin in the Woods does a better job with it.
It's so funny, like not
fuck these gods,
knock at the Cabin in the Woods, like it feels like
Cabin in the Woods,
it's like a Jeopardy category, and they do those like Pete Rose Kennedy, the like
ape tit. I'll take ape tit.
Yes,
it says a petite déjeuner.
I also thought, what else? Just that for a horror film, I felt like this just underscored fears. It didn't help me digest any. I felt like seeing the wave on Cannon Beach, that
it was too.
It was like
much.
This is kind of triggering.
It's also taking the mystery away, which is like a driving. Not that. I don't know, a really good movie, it's okay if you know the ending and it's still good, but like
Yeah,
it just
yeah.
sort of, I don't
Yeah.
know, the movie felt like it needed to spell itself out so much, which is all the
Yes.
more reason that if you're still walking away with questions of why did they feel motivated and this compelled in that way.
Yeah.
I think in the book they're almost like physically incapable of not doing this ritual, like the four intruders.
Okay.
I think there's that added element of like
I
they're
mean,
compelled on like a
Leonard kind of says that, but you just don't.
but you don't really get that vibe.
no,
And yeah,
I also just
in the movie,
I
yeah.
felt like also that they were a same-sex couple seemed to not matter, but also mattered in Andrew.
like this is supposed to all be a lesson for Andrew to have to learn how to get past his own trauma and understand the complexity and richness of the rest of the
Christianity.
world. Well, they're just going to say like, well, just on a humanist level,
Right.
We're ignoring
Yeah.
how cruel this fucked up god or perhaps
Yeah.
demon is that is inflicting this kind of pain. They also
Yeah.
imply this has happened to other families and will likely still continue to happen. And like,
Yeah.
now let's go back to the book then, where the book is actually the couple finally is like, well, no, we're not gonna
Yeah.
fucking follow these rules then. But in the movie, it's just focusing. Okay, yeah, no, we kind of have all this God Christian stuff sort of like implied. Although I never really hear them say, unless I'm mistaken, I didn't really hear people talking about the Bible or Christianity directly.
no, and I mean,
And I think there were
and the four horsemen of the apocalypse that comes out of what book? I don't know.
well, it is the Bible, but
Well,
like,
right, but is that- that's Old Testament, yeah.
right? So I think there's sort of like there's sort of like a pseudo ambiguity. Like it is basic, like it does feel pretty
I mean-
kind of Christian, but it's not.
I mean,
like they
John-
don't want to take it on.
Eric, Jonathan Groff's character. I mean,
Yeah.
at one point he literally kind of spells it all out.
Yeah, no, at the
You
very
know?
end, he just tells you the moral.
He's like, I think they're the four horsemen of the apocalypse, and it's like, oh, okay.
He's I mean, he's
and-
literally telling you them,
and
and
then-
just in case you didn't get the message of the movie.
Yeah.
Here's what you were supposed to have learned.
Yeah, that
It's
kind of
very
bugged me.
spoon-fed.
And then also, I was like, but wait, so they're all supposed to be the inverse because it's like pestilence, war, like, but they were
I
like
think
the
it was
nurses
supposed to be nurturing, mothering, nurturing
like
something.
feeding because the woman cooked and the
Yeah,
other
one of
healed.
them is nurturing,
But
healing,
Redmond was-
malice.
But that's the bad one. So I'm like, you didn't even.
well, I'll
get
tell
it
you,
right.
Once I got the full picture of the story, I was like, well, no wonder he came in a bad mood. He was going to be the first one to go.
Yeah.
Also, too, it's like then you have things in the story like the fact that he happens to be the same guy who's like the
Yeah.
bigot in Boston who hate crimed on Andrew, and I'm like,
And that turned out to not
that
be
was again red
significant?
herring,
Red
city,
herring.
like you said,
Just herring after herring.
it's just the most in your face example of trying to spoon feed the story of how Andrew has to learn to like accept and embrace the humanity and people that he may not agree with. But it also, this movie did low-key kind of with the fact that this same-sex couple is going through this very unfair punishment because their love's so pure, as Dave Bautista's Leonard says. But like,
Yeah.
it reminded me of and this is in the book too for Stephen King for It, and in the start of how It chapter 2 starts, and just like it's I didn't expect this to happen when I went to see It chapter 2. I cried at the first scene. I don't give a fuck about Pennywise. I mean, he's scary, sure, but like the hate crime aspect of the start of that. Spoilers for It chapter 2.
Yeah, we spoil other
and also
movies, too.
spoil It. We spoil all sorts of shit. But like there's just the cruelty and the it just was
Yeah.
like I don't.
Yeah.
Is this serving the story, or does this just feel like we're just watching like
It was just
we're just watching like good. It's
a lot of
it's
misdirection.
cruel.
It was just a lot. And I understand that
cruel.
like we were kept out of certain pieces of information again to simulate the experience of being one of the people being held hostage. I understand that. But those opening titles were over these like crazy drawings of like dark looking
But then we never got.
we never got to see any of those.
that
We never got to
filled out.
Like it's like okay, so we're not allowed to see any of the visions. Okay, that's fine because a person wouldn't.
But then we also did get these flashbacks that were kind of
I assume we're in their minds.
Yeah, we're in the minds
They're-
of the family,
right,
so we're
they're-
getting the taste of the
But
back
you know
and
what's funny
forth.
about the flashbacks? I understood the flashbacks when they went really far out. But there was a
Yeah.
moment where it flashed back to the moment where they arrived at the cabin. I'm like, why didn't it just start with
That's
that?
what I thought too when they pull out, like, when the trailer starts. The trailer starts like almost chronologically. Though they always start with the "My Boogie Shoes"
Right.
clip, and then the way that it
But
just,
in the film, it's like it starts with these. Well, not only with this. I mean, it starts actually on a grasshopper, but and it doesn't immediately
and that's
go to
supposed
this.
to be an analogy,
Right.
Yeah.
But the right transformation.
Sure.
bullshit, whatever. But well, that's butterflies. Never mind.
Sorry, no, but it's about like control and free. Like it's all about
Okay.
like she's.
Well, she puts him in the jar and she's like, "I'm going to study you for a little while." And I was like, "Oh, is this
so
the
she's-
foreshadowing
she is
to
like the god that's doing this, running this test to see
or
what the people.
or will they be the grasshoppers in the jar soon?"
Well,
You know, like, right?
humanity
Like-
is the grasshopper,
Right.
but then when is
Okay.
role playing as the god
Okay.
of the world? Yeah,
I hear what you're saying.
We're on the same page.
But you know, there are these incredibly tight, like we feel this tension because here's this enormous dude,
Yeah.
stranger, and although he's being gentle,
Yeah.
he's sitting down with her. We're completely tense from the get. But it's like
I was
this-
surprised how calm she reacted
I
initially.
know,
'cause
right?
I would have freaked
I would
out.
have been like, yeah, I don't know you. But the shots are so tight. Like we're so in their faces.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what am I supposed to? What's,
Well,
what's-
because of this, it's all this tension building, but then immediately, like the tension's pulled away, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh no, it's this thing.
yeah, and I guess I just, yeah, I didn't understand it. It was like it almost
Yeah.
felt like they didn't trust the audience to be patient enough to watch people drive
Yes.
up to a cabin.
Yes, it
Like-
was like it, I would have liked to have not. I give people the benefit of the doubt. You know,
Yeah.
it's kind of like when people make stories for children, and it's like, well, don't talk down. The kids will understand if you don't.
Yeah, they don't want to
pander.
They don't want to be pandered to.
Yeah, and I feel like in this is another story where like
Yeah.
we could have maybe
and I mean this is
practice that for adults.
Yeah, and this is super nitpicky, but the titles at the beginning moved really fast. I could not actually read them quickly enough in
Yeah.
time. Are we just that distrusting of
felt
people's attention
Well, it felt a
span?
little. Yeah, it feels a little. That makes sense.
Like-
I get that impression.
And I liked the titles. I mean, it was just they were going so fast. I was
Yeah.
just like, whoa, damn, okay.
Like we don't have to be so obvious with
yeah.
people are going to want to interpret what they want to interpret anyway.
Oh, totally.
And even if you're spoon feeding an ending,
yeah.
just now what I will say about the tight shot thing though is
Yeah.
that it gave all of the actors so much opportunity to shine, and I think every performance in this movie is really, really strong. And and Rupert Grint doesn't really, I'll be honest, he doesn't have like a ton to work with, but like he still does good. But Dave Bautista, I mean, uncut mono, like just full shot, or full long takes, and it's close and it feels grounded and real.
Yeah, I don't want to discredit his performance because it's not
That's
poor.
just, I mean, it's okay if you're not on. I just feel very strongly about it. I was like,
I think it got the tone of voice, I think, in cadence, which again is a choice. I just felt like it got a little fatiguing after a while. I
Sure.
was kind of like, I can't listen to this mumbly dude anymore. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
no, I get what you.
But again,
I
that's
understand
just
that.
me having a reaction. It's not a reflection on his professionalism or his ability as an actor.
I really liked, and this is another thing I really want to give credit for the story, both book and movie. I love the idea of an invasion story that is fully inverted as this one is. They do not want to break in. Dave Bautista's knocking. He's like, we don't want to break in. We just want it. We got to talk to you. Like every step of the way, he tries to approach the little girl. So you look at it conceptually.
It is
I have to
different.
appreciate that. I like that these invaders are not. It's anti the strangers. If you've ever seen this, when I'm spoiling The Strangers, the
Go
Liv
for it.
Tyler. So that you just have these fucking crazy masked, the seemingly like young adult, whatever. They break in, and then Liv Tyler at the very end is like, "Why are you doing this?" And the girl's like, "Because you were home." Like it's just the inanity. Whereas this is very intentional. They don't want to do it. They have nothing but like they want to reason. They want to. They're trying to politely invade.
Yeah.
Like we don't want to have to break down your windows.
Right.
So we
like
really
they,
don't want to.
they like fix things up.
the One of the girls cooks breakfast for the little girl. I was like, did you like it? And they're all, everyone's trying to appeal to the humanity of the couple.
But I mean, again, I was also upset by them having to off themselves in this ritualistic
Yeah, and that's the other
way.
thing. So they're not actually ever being fought against, although again, difference from the book is that apparently that like the among the four horsemen there are one or more of them that get really they do start being like, why can't we just torture them,
I see.
something like that, whereas in the movie it was very restrained and and then they have to
and I won't sit here and say like, oh, I saw the four horsemen thing. Like, I didn't. I honestly didn't.
I mean,
like,
I saw it, but also it was like on the very superficial level. It was four horsemen,
Yeah, that's fair.
I will say there's things that I think are like unintentionally funny about this movie too. Sometimes, like on top of the natural sense of humor M. Night Shyamalan seems to have, there's also like, you got these weapons. There's, no, they're tools.
Yeah.
But I don't think that was supposed to be funny, but I laughed when he was like, they're just tools.
Tools of death.
Looking tribal axes.
Yeah, and I again, the earnestness, it's a thing that many of us don't, people go for the cynical stuff. So, but,
we're all getting sick of that ironic winky. So
we are.
Good,
However, I think when it was like this little, you and me together forever, I was just like, oh God, like, I'm sorry.
And then it feels too saccharine at that point.
So saccharine. Yeah. And I'm like, it has nothing to do with them being gay. It's like, I would hate that if it was a straight couple, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but so it feels like it's this sort of like added complication, or this sort of added like, aren't they like, haven't they fucking been through enough? Like, that's just sort of
it's like it mattered and it didn't, because the Redmond thing mattered but it didn't. And
again, it's like I like the overall message about like recognizing the validity of the humanity of others around you outside of your own like tribe or circle. Yeah. But again, the means, the execution of it, I don't know. I don't know about that.
Again, and that little girl, like, did you stop it? Like, your daddy's dead. Like, and you don't seem that upset. Like,
so sometimes, and that's the thing.
And I know children can be.
Well, I've had this issue with other like M. Night Shyamalan movies too, where it's with there's a lot of groundedness and wholesomeness and humanity, but then a lot of the emotions can be really washed, or they can be really. Everyone can be very detached about like they're not reacting normally to certain, like there are things in this movie for sure that was the case. I think The Village at times has that vibe.
The Village fucked me up because I was watching this and like they go to the cafe and it's like, oh, I guess it is real, but then they drive away from the cafe and I'm like, okay, where's the twist? Like, is the cat? It's all bullshit. Like, I was like still kind of wait. I'm like, oh no, that's it.
No, there's just
that's it. Like, there you go. It wasn't like big enough for me. I don't know.
No, I know. Well, yeah, it's.
I'm such an asshole.
And then I remember it was funny when The Village came out too. He especially went under scrutiny because I think there was like a YA novel that had a similar twist. It came out around that time, so he was also getting the plagiarism. I think like flack. And
he has been. There's a couple of things that have claimed some plagiarism.
I feel like that was a stark shift to right around that time.
Yes,
The Village.
No, The Village.
People were just starting to be like, this guy.
The Village made money, but critics were like, ooh, not sure about this one.
Yeah, especially with the YA book, I think that really didn't help.
No, it's true. I thought I had written down those issues. I'll say that like it's not that there may be some validity to it.
Not accusing of plagiarism, but just I remember that being part of the hoo-ha.
The thing is, like, I think Simon and Schuster like released a statement suggesting that they were looking into whether they should sue, and basically Shyamalan and company or whatever, we're just like, this is totally unfounded.
Also, to both and neither of their credit, it's not that big of a twist. Not to be a dick.
I mean, it was like. I think when it happened, I remember people in the theater groaning. Mm-hmm. I remember that.
Yeah, when it cuts to the park ranger, I remember in the theater, same thing, where people are like, oh.
They're just like,
okay.
No.
Okay.
Like, it's just, I heard a lot of like, oh.
Yeah, it's that specific tone of people just like, oh. You see the little flashing lights.
It was palpable. It was a palpable.
Yeah.
And
I remember that.
But, looking back, I think it's actually better than we
No,
then
it's still really well made.
like, I wouldn't mind watching it again. Actually,
I think it's definitely one of his better ones. And it's really well cast.
like against a lot of the other things he's made. I think that's one of the better things.
Relatively speaking, for sure. And
of course, I'm speaking from such limited knowledge here.
No, I'm speaking from like with more breadth. I can say you're not wrong in that capacity. I think what you were talking about with Wen and the reactions of it's grounded and not grounded at times, like that.
Yeah.
It's that whiplash thing.
The whiplash, yeah.
where you're kind of
no, I'm with you.
It feels unsteady.
Yeah,
Totally, like you don't feel tethered.
Yeah, and
Fully.
And it's interesting because this whole thing, right, is based on Cabin at the End of the World by Paul Tremblay, which I've never read, but that got optioned into a movie before it ever got published. Like that's how
Interesting.
Like, man, I'm telling you, maybe the thing to do is write a fucking novel that could be turned into a
people
book.
do that.
People do it.
They go novel with the intention of being,
like write a novel like the way you would imagine a film.
Yeah,
and it's like that's actually
because
really,
people won't. They don't want to do an original story. But if you write a novel with the intention of turning it into a screenplay,
then it's like, well, we can make money on that, you know,
go.
and the publisher's happy because an option is great. Like that's
There
just
you go.
anyway. But so it was the author Paul Tremblay had to keep the adaptation of movie plans like a secret until like last summer because they didn't want anyone, I don't know, digging into this book too deeply, I guess, or whatever. They didn't, or steal its thunder. I don't know, but it was a secret. The first draft was developed by Michael Sherman and Steve Desmond, and the script appeared on The Blacklist. This has come up a couple of times in my research, but I've never bothered to like get into it on the show, which is The Blacklist is a list of the most popular screenplays that haven't yet been produced. The stuff that's like floating around.
It's like an important thing for screenwriters.
Yeah.
People.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
Well, and this was on that list for a bit. M. Night Shyamalan initially was going to just produce, and I got different stories. Like one version suggested that the studio came back and said, "Hey, could you maybe rewrite and direct it?" I've heard other things saying that like, no, he just went ahead and rewrote it and was like, I want to direct it. So I don't know which it was, but the point is he took a hand in it and he made some changes. So the difference.
It literally changes the entire message of the story.
He made it his own.
It's
he made it his own.
fully a different story.
Yeah.
That way.
Yeah.
With the ending.
Yeah. So it's.
I don't hate everything.
No,
I don't hate everything he changed, but again,
Yeah.
and I actually like the messages of both in their own way. I just don't know if execution wise.
Yeah.
I will say I like that Wen lives.
Yeah.
I like that Wen lives.
I'm glad that she didn't
I'm
die
glad she didn't die.
because I don't know.
Not cool.
That would have not been.
Not cool.
I wish they had a dog they could have picked. I mean,
Yeah,
sorry.
right.
Sorry, dog.
Oh well.
Do you have reviews to share?
I have quite a few, so give me.
Take your time.
I will say, again, polarizing. I think a lot of people they have, there's a mixed bag of people who think very highly of him,
Yes.
or people who are rooting for him.
Sure.
Want to give him the benefit of the doubt, whatever, or riding the renaissance of like upward approval. They're just refreshed by his original, blah, blah, blah. That's the overall song. Then there's also people on the opposite end. They're just like, fuck this. This sucks. Stop it. Which is why, scoring wise, IMDb 6.4 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes 68%, Metacritic 62%. It's like right in that realm of,
Okay.
It's like technically fresh, but like
Just barely.
very polarizing stuff. And
What is that? A D?
yeah, and it's actually very matched audience. Tomatometer on Rotten Tomatoes 67%. The audience score 65% as of like a week into its opening, I guess.
Yeah,
So
it has not been long.
We're pretty early on. I'm going to show it to you right now, but like literally splatter fresh on that first page of the critics.
Yeah, that's a chessboard. It's like every other.
I'll read a couple of those, maybe a couple letterboxs, but
Yeah, sure, whatever you want.
yeah, Nicholas Barber from BBC.com. Maybe Shyamalan just doesn't possess the unsparing nastiness that this potentially upsetting story requires. And it gave it a 2 out of 5. And the thing is, though, it's really hard to make that kind of argument because on one hand, compared to the book, he didn't want to tell the story from the book, which is a lot crueler and a lot more critical about the idea of like divine, influence or tests from God. It's much more critical, you know, like
That it doesn't surprise me that he loosened that out of it.
I think because he's telling a much more humanistic or whatever, it's about an empathy and acceptance of other people. It's almost like the God thing doesn't really. it almost muddies it more because you get caught up in the logistics, like we were just talking about with
yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I'm rambling. So
it's okay.
I'll read. All right. Trace Saveur. I'm saying that wrong. From the Austin Chronicle. This is a fresh rating, 4 out of 5 rating. It trades stark ambiguity for big emotional clarity in a way that still feels true to the source material, which questions the limits of one's duty to sacrifice what they love for a world that they're not even sure is worth saving. Now that as far as like the book goes, but I don't think it actually was that true to the book's message.
Okay.
It's just, as far as changes, it's just telling a different message.
Yeah.
Of course, we got silly, jokey ones.
I like pithy.
On Letterboxd. Reese with an H, just 3-star rating. You know who would have survived and saved humanity? Lesbians.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's a good take.
Let's see. And actually I watched, I wanted to recommend and say, because this is partly an opinion I agreed with that I watched a review of recently. I really like Amanda the Jedi on YouTube, and her Letterboxd review concisely says what and I agree. Genuinely struggling with the purpose of what I just watched. Like, I get it, but not the way that they went about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, I get it. I just don't know if I like how you did it.
Yeah, that's a really succincth way.
And I'll leave it there because everybody else is just memeing and shit.
It's like, if I'm being honest, it's like, we, movie ends, we get up, because I went with Mike, get out of our seats, go down, and then I was like, okay, I gotta pee. Like, all right, and I'm like, I hated that.
Yeah, that's valid. I also want to point out, notably, she doesn't have any stars on her.
Yeah.
She didn't put any stars. None. It's just totally blank. And it's like, I think that's...
It's an impossible thing, because it's like, it's like on... different streaming platforms, they'll be like, Netflix has like a thumbs up, thumbs down, but now they've got like a double thumbs up. Like, I really liked it. And I'm like, I need more if you really want me to weigh in. Like, I'm like, well, it was well produced, but I really hate that they dubbed in English here. Like,
when you put it in these concrete terms of numbers and thumbs,
I need a rubric
and shit.
I need a rubric.
There's more.
Like,
there's categories of things.
I need to give it some credit, but I didn't like this aspect of it. Filter that, fuckers.
Look, I give this 5 out of 5 stars for casting. Right. But then we got to go into like the actual story. We go into the script, and we go into whatever. That's a different story.
Yeah.
But I think every single actor absolutely nailed their role, and I actually really appreciate and noticed this in most of them. Even though granted in the writing and maybe they're directed, some stuff feels uncomfortably muted or inorganic, but long takes, room for someone to have an emotional arc, to build their tears, to build their reaction. He can really showcase actors. Yeah. Oh, Toni Collette and fucking Sixth Sense, and she's been going around on social media and clips and stuff. I'm like, good.
Yeah, she
kills in that. She's also just an incredible
she's
actress.
A great actress.
She's never done bad.
But that movie, if you had any doubt.
Oh, yeah.
She's got that fucking Philly thing down.
She's so good. I love when she like he comes home from school and then she like picks him up. She's like, well, I won the lottery and then I did this.
Yeah.
And there's the car scene where it's just Haley Joel Osment monologuing. It's just her reacting.
Yeah.
Also, credit to the director and editor for knowing what to accentuate.
Haley Joel Osment also just a special talent, a special moment in his life. Everything worked out, and Shyamalan in interviews sort of commented on like Kristen Cui when, he was just like, that was like an amazing find. I knew that was going to be an important character cast. The other one being Leonard. And he knew he wanted Dave Bautista. He knew that. And it's a good vehicle for him. I know he's trying to, escape some
He doesn't want to just be doing like action comedy stuff like that. I think that's
and
great.
His physical presence in this is significant to the story. It's an intimidation factor.
It's that subversion thing, which again, I want to give so much appreciation and acknowledgement to that. But then I also, it's like, again, I didn't I didn't like this.
I know.
I didn't like. I don't.
No.
It's
okay. I mean, you know, the thing is,
I don't know if this is I don't actually know if this is a valuable message by the means that it was delivered.
I don't
know
the message. If I understood it, I think I found it upsetting.
I think the means spoils the message.
Yeah.
And so Again, I'm so torn on going less than 3 stars for so many reasons. Because there's so many, like we're just saying about the rubric thing. I'm just like, there's so many things I really like.
There's more to talk about. However, it did come in at number 1 at the box office. It knocked Avatar: Way of Water off the number 1 spot. So, for those of you who care about the box office,
there you go.
Some other movies that are out now, but maybe you're listening to this 2 years from now when we're still doing this in my bedroom. No, there we go. Sorry.
If we're lucky.
Other movies: 80 for Brady, Little Dixie, The Locksmith, Who Invited Charlie.
Some of these sound.
Some of these are
I do
like.
want to see 80 for Brady though. Actually,
the ones I just listed, they were released the same Friday, as Knock at the Cabin.
Yeah.
However, what is going at the box office? Knock at the Cabin number 1, 80 for Brady number 2, Avatar number 3, Puss in Boots, and then A Man Called Otto.
Good.
Yeah. Now there were like 2 other things ranking in there, but it was like there are these like Fandango presentations of certain things that apparently somehow factor into box office. Anyway.
Oh, like special screenings. And stuff.
Yeah. So there were a couple of things that I'm like, I'm not mentioning those.
Yeah.
Anyway, in our director's chair this week, M. Night Shyamalan. Yes. He was born Manoj Nelliyathu Shyamalan, August 6, 1970, in Mahe, India, which is in the Union Territory of Pondicherry. His parents relocated to the United States when he was 6 weeks old and raised him in Penn Valley, Pennsylvania. His mother, Jalalakshmi, was an OBGYN, and his father, Nelliyathu, was a neurologist. And pretty much everybody in his family is like some kind of doctor. So, and they wanted him to be a doctor, but they gave him a Super 8 camera when he was really young. And
oops.
And although his father was like, be a doctor, his mother's like,
let him self-actualize.
Follow if you like this, follow your passion, and they definitely supported him. I mean, they were some of the early producers and money on his films, so they did good. He was raised Hindu, but sent to Catholic private school and Episcopal high school.
So he's met a range of people.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning though that he's like, I was the only Indian kid at any school I ever went to, and that included film school.
Interesting.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
But also, and I want to mention specifically the area in Philadelphia that his parents moved to is the sort of mainline western suburbs of Philadelphia. Now, I've heard of this before.
This is a nice area or whatever,
It's
right?
very nice.
Yeah.
It's a historical and social region where wealth, family ties are everything.
Sure.
So your parents come from a whole other country, a whole other culture, a whole other religion, but they want to do good by you. So they want you to go to good schools, and these are the good schools, and this is the good neighborhood.
This is where they go.
So here's where we go.
Yeah.
But, how outside he must have felt, and he's talked about it. He doesn't, lament it necessarily, but he identifies with outsiders really well. And I think, you see that right in The Sixth Sense, like so palpably. I just think it's worth mentioning being in a place where they still have debutante balls, I mean, that's the world we're talking about, so
I mean, it's like knowing this stuff too, it just adds to further complications about my perception of his work then, because I really support like the heart or the intention. Again, I love the message, just not the means. In so many of his works.
No, it's fair. He attended NYU on a merit scholarship. He was also a National Merit Scholar, which is a big deal. This is a sort of federally funded. Well, maybe it's not federally funded. He's a very, very smart guy, and I'm like, that's those parents. I'm sorry, it's a stereotype.
But like they wanted him to succeed, so they made sure to give him access to all the opportunities.
He worked, and he worked very hard.
There you go.
And so he, again, went to NYU in 1988. He finished in 1992 with a film degree from Tisch School of the Arts. The first film he made was Praying with Anger. He made it while he was a student, and he filmed it in India. Went down there because, they were friends and family connections. And, of course, your dollar will go a little further. But he described the experience this was his first time being a film director. And every member of that crew had been on like 100 films, you know? And he said they all treated me with absolute respect. They respected what director meant and the office. It didn't matter. And he said that gave him a lot of confidence coming back to have that be his first experience.
I'm glad.
Yeah. And working with a really professional group of people. It's really smart
That's
call.
uplifting.
Yeah. Second film was Wide Awake, which earned him a sort of Best Young Artist Award for drama in 1999. It had a decent cast. Robert Loggia, Rosie O'Donnell, some other big names in it. Before The Sixth Sense, it's worth mentioning that he co-wrote the screenplay for Stuart Little.
Yeah.
And it was revealed in 2013, he ghost wrote She's All
She's
That.
all that. Yeah, like went around
You know
on Twitter
about
not
this.
that long
Yeah.
ago. Someone was memeing that.
Ugh, crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of makes me like him a lot more.
No,
I mean,
he gets tough.
No,
he does stuff.
the fact that he's
stuff.
adept. He's got
Yeah.
skill. The fact
Yeah.
that like when you're script doctoring, you have skill because you have to.
Yeah.
There's no glory in it. It's all job. Of course, The Sixth Sense comes out in 1999, second highest grossing horror film of all time. It is number one. He was in talks to write the fourth Indiana Jones movie screenplay, but that all kind of fell through. And he was like, I don't think it was right.
Yeah.
He also was angling or being considered for Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Of course, that went to Chris Columbus. But he mentioned something about how, like, yeah, I think I had a very different idea about what that would be.
That's I could see that being the case now with
I just-
Avatar. No, not to hold the whole tired punching
No.
down on the Avatar. Like we all fucking know, obviously that movie was not it. But like I think about that with the first Harry. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
he seemed to be on a different.
A lot of
page.
people were considered, I think, for that first Harry Potter movie because it was such a big
Right.
fucking flagship deal. I mean, I
I
think.
think Chris Columbus was.
Oh no, he was a great choice. But I just want to mention that I think one of the names that was thrown out, I don't think it was ever serious, was like Terry Gilliam. Like, Christ.
Yeah,
It would be a movie.
it would be a movie.
It would be a movie.
It would be a very.
It'd be dark and
It would be
weird.
intense.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Of course, Unbreakable comes out in 2000, the sort of secret comic book movie.
Yeah.
Fucking great.
Yeah, it's really good.
Signs in 2002, which we both were saying, Mel Gibson's a little hard to take, but Joaquin Phoenix.
I just don't like that guy. It's the
Yeah.
same aversion I have with like Clint Eastwood with the movie we talked about last week or whatever.
Yeah.
But just that is still really I still
Still
think
great
it's a
movie.
solid movie.
Oh,
really solid.
that like part where they're watching the news report with the footage from
Yeah.
the birthday party in Mexico.
Yeah.
Oh God.
That's a good example versus this Knock at
Yeah.
the Cabin where it's the wrong like sort of feel.
Yeah.
Where I think Signs was the right feel because
Signs-
I think Signs did a better job of the claustrophobia of there being they're a house and this cornfield like they are cut off
and exposed.
I think it did it.
Yeah.
I think Signs does a better job of the isolation
Yeah.
effect versus the Cabin.
I feel the vulnerability in Signs. Like,
Yeah.
especially with the corn and the
and
just
there's quiet, there's space. It's just,
so
it feels,
good. So good.
I don't know.
No, that house, the setting was a big part of it.
I think
Yeah.
there's things that could have been good for Cabin that were really good in Signs that way.
Yeah,
tonally.
But you're right. I mean, Signs is a different kind. I mean, it's a global invasion as opposed to a home invasion.
Yeah.
and yet it still operates on home invasion logic.
Yeah.
I mean, when they get the thing
I
trapped.
guess
and stuff.
TV and the news too. The way we consumed media even then was like way different than now.
That's
too.
true.
And
No, it's true.
it just also like it took me
No,
out of
the-
Cabin when every time they turn on the TV, it
Yeah.
was like
But it's true. We do live in an era now of deep fakes and like,
Yeah.
it's a TV. Like, how do you know? I mean, again,
Yeah.
that kind of skepticism. I think that is what works in this movie, even though I found it to be a frustrating watch.
at a certain point, I was like, I get where Andrew's coming from, but also at a certain point, I was like, you're gonna just come on, like you
Yeah.
gotta.
Just kill
You
your
don't
husband.
Why would they? Why, no, there's a fucking kill yourself. No, I don't know. But I just like sometimes I get like really. I felt this way about. I went and saw a play. Not that long. I don't remember the name of the play now. So this is a time. It's the name of a time or something.
Yeah.
I think at a certain point when you have a character that is like super in denial about stuff that becomes increasingly more obvious, that starts to become really tired.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah.
And with the character Andrew and Cabin, I was like,
And, like, Leonard
come on,
even-
these people are killing themselves. Come on.
And like Leonard even says, like, you already believe, like, you're
Yeah, just like
yeah,
stop it.
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So, sorry, back to the,
Yeah,
the
sorry,
filmography.
yeah,
No,
just-
totally
yeah.
fine. We got through Signs.
Yeah.
And then The Village, 2004. And like I said, that made money, but critics are suddenly like, this guy.
Yeah.
We talked about it. He was in consideration for directing Life of Pi. But again, I never read that. But apparently it also has a twist at the end. And he was kind of like, I mean, this is where his whole thing about expectations and being aware of them came up. He's like, if you put my name on it, people have a totally different experience.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's aware of that is good. But I say,
yeah.
I think he's almost though being hemmed in by his own sense of expectations.
Yeah, he's overthinking it maybe.
Maybe a little bit.
Yeah,
I mean,
know.
maybe that's not fair for me to
No,
say.
I don't
but,
know. You're fine.
But
What
I feel
else?
like it makes me sad. Anyway.
Yeah. No,
All
I
right.
get what you
So then we
mean.
get a run of 4 films that, none of which are critically loved.
Sure.
Lady in the Water, The Happening, Last Airbender, and After Earth. The 2 in the middle made some money, but
Sure.
So his reputation plummets, and this is at the point where he funds his own film, The Visit, which is no studio's interested. He shoots it himself in secret. Universal picks up the rights and releases it. It's a huge success.
There you go.
He comes back to Universal. He does Split, Glass, and those finish out the whole Unbreakable. Apparently,
Yeah.
that was part of a trilogy, I guess. And then Old is part of a 2-picture deal he has at Universal, and Knock at the Cabin is sort of the other piece of that. His production company, Blinding Edge, I just want to mention, is based in Berwyn, Pennsylvania. This guy is a Pennsylvania boy. Like he is the reason he set Sixth Sense there. Which was such a big deal at the time. That just wasn't shot in Hollywood.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
And it just adds to the feel. Like it's just nice.
It's wonderful.
Everything's in New York or LA.
I know. I also want to mention that I thought, I must have just dreamt this, but I thought I remembered this story about how, because his parents brought him over when he was 6 weeks old, he didn't have a middle name. And that I thought they were forced to choose a name quickly, and that's where Knight came from. This isn't true. This isn't what happened.
And I wish I could say what the source was, but I feel like I read something where it was just
chose
it was a nickname that he liked he got from friends or something.
Yeah, and then it was definitely a nickname. I couldn't figure out where that started. And then I also read that, and I don't know if this is true, but that National Merit Scholar Award, it's it's a whole citizenship U.S.-based thing. And so I think he maybe had to have choose a middle name at that point and went with that. But again, it's muddy. I've seen a lot of different things, and I don't know where I thought I had heard this.
Yeah,
that's why I listened to the Old Fresh Air interview. I was convinced they talked about it on there, and I'm like, no, they didn't. I'm high.
Okay.
He lives at a 125-acre estate known as Ravenwood, and this is in Pennsylvania. Yeah. He's got a 27,000-foot square Georgian revival home that was built in 1937. I just bring this up apart from that sounds nice. You can look at it on Architectural Digest. They did a profile, but it's really funny to me that he grew up in Mainline, outside Philly, feeling like an outsider, and now he owns the biggest fucking palatial estate. He's got the biggest castle now.
Good for him.
I am happy for him. I am I don't think that's exactly the he wanted it because of that. I just find it interesting that he loves Pennsylvania though. So good for him. Anyway, I don't have a best supporting player. I
don't think there really are any. I think everybody
the flashbacks
everyone's
maybe, but what
maybe Rupert Grint's character's kind of
he's
supporting
pretty short
because he's quick. His bits. His bits. I don't know how tall he is, but it's short. It's a short bit.
Short amount of time.
Short amount of time for sure.
I gotta say, people were so excited. I feel like people talked about him so much.
Because there's people who don't really. He's been doing stuff, but nothing kind of as
high profile.
Yeah, as high profile as this, or main stage kind of.
Yeah,
he's been on some series. I think it's something Netflix or Apple Plus.
Yeah, and I'm like, he deserves all the.
M. Night Shyamalan's other series, I think, which is on Apple. I think he's on that.
Is it called Servant?
I think he's in that show.
Yeah,
I don't know if maybe that's how he developed the relationship with M. Night, but
yeah, he for all the talk though, he was in it for about 10 minutes. I mean, he's not in it long.
Yeah. He's mostly doing kind of the pouting Ron Weasley bit.
A little bit.
From the 4th and 5th movies specifically.
Yeah, but with more homophobia.
With more homophobia.
Only a little bit more though.
No, but just it's funny. It's I was like, I'd be in a bad mood too if I was going to be the first one to have to do this.
Oh yeah, I'd be furious.
Oh, I'd be so mad.
Yeah.
See, they don't know. They're not going to believe. I would have been the same way.
But again, I'm just
been freaking out more.
Why does they have to die? Did the horseman have
Well,
to
see,
die?
that's the thing is if they're going to go limited claustrophobic as little knowledge as you go one way or you go but it's almost too much was given. But also
but also not enough.
I kind of liked that. Okay, you know what? Here's my best supporting. When they actually show, and I was not sure if they were going to do this when the movie was going to end, they actually show them leaving the cabin and driving away. You see some trees on fire. They stop at like a very busy diner. Yeah. I also kind of love sort of there seems to be almost like a reverence of like old school diner culture and the communal aspect of that I kind of liked that was showcased.
I didn't hate that.
I feel like, again, he's very intentional. I feel like that was intentional, this whole communal
also
Americana
authentic
thing.
To the location.
Very authentic. And again, the imagery. When the waitress at the bar at the counter is on the phone with her family and making sure they're okay.
Yeah.
And you hear Andrew kind of listening in and being like, it's sort of another example of like, oh, see, other people have complex emotional ties and worlds just like mine. Like, you know,
you're not.
But I would get, if I had to give a supporting, although I think everyone's a main actor in this.
I know. It's a difficult.
It'd be the waitress at the diner.
Yeah, it's more of an
like, you're okay.
It's an ensemble.
Yeah.
I would not watch this again.
Yeah.
Not gonna.
I mean, if it was on, I would.
No.
I would willfully put it back on, probably.
I would never choose to watch this again.
I would willingly watch like The Village or The Sixth Sense.
I literally today was looking like, is The Sixth Sense streaming anywhere right now? I was like, no, of course not, because it's a great fucking movie.
I know. It's like, all like the good ones. Oh, the good ones are gonna rent.
They lock up the good stuff.
Yeah, no, they do. This all this Disney Vault shit. That's what everybody said. Well, well, what if we all did that? What if we? Yeah. Hold on to your physical media.
Yes. Yeah. That is a PSA for that, for sure.
Because I actually used to have The Village on DVD and I don't now.
Oh, that's funny. I mean,
I don't have a DVD player.
Thank you for listening. You're shifting in your seat.
Oh no, I just was.
No, you're good.
Again,
okay, also, I figured. I was like, okay.
I
like,
have to pee every 10 minutes.
No, that's okay.
No, but I'm glad I just really wanted to like talk about M. Night Shyamalan.
No, and we did, and it's good. And I listen. Sixth Sense still to this day sometimes go to the bathroom at night, and I'm afraid somebody's gonna walk past the door in the hallway.
I don't like that. Don't tell
like
me
that's
that. I gotta
still
go to the bathroom again. Don't bring that up.
I'm sorry, but that's still in my head. Like I was afraid to pee at night for so long because of that movie.
Yeah.
So you know he's effective is what I'm saying. I'm not above it.
The imagery is effective.
It's effective. Again, thank you for listening. Leave us a review. Follow us on social media. All that shit.
Yeah, dude.
We'll see you next time.
We got shirts.